Good morning. Time for convening has arrived. The Senate will come to order. At this time, I want to ask all unauthorized personnel to exit the chamber. Senator from the 6th, you look mighty jolly this morning. Recognize you for the reading of the journal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just looking at you and admiring your hair today. It's kind of flipped up nicely and looks like the wind was blowing hard out there today.
But it's getting grayer dealing with y'all all the time, I can tell you that.
I hear you. I keep getting shorter and fatter for some reason. Mr. President, we have a great lineup of pages today. Out of Marietta, we have Barrett Burkhart and Jackson Burkhart. Little brother combo there. Out of Roswell, Caroline Young. From Canton, we have Sierra Reese. From Villa Rica, Jasper Burden. From Auburn, we have our very own Senator Dixon's son with us today, Hudson Dixon. From Buford, we have Jack Griffin. Also from Buford, we have Kayla Thomas. From Peachtree City, next door neighbor to me, we got Grace Sanders. From Atlanta, Anderson Adams. Douglasville, we have Rachel Graham and Simone Wilson. From Hawkinsville, Brooks Flowers. From Atlanta, Brindley Brown and Jones Brown, little brother-sister combo there. From Marietta, we have Jian Huang. We have Bodum Kim, Jaeyoung Kim, Yadum Kim, and Bodum and Bodum and Yadum are brother and sister. From Johns Creek, we have Arna Voshan. From Woodstock, another brother-sister of Ashlyn and Eric Daniele. From Atlanta, we have Audra and Sloan Harrison, little sisters there. And then from Bonaire, we have Madeline Potter. Y'all give these pages a big round of applause. We appreciate them being here. Looking forward to working with y'all today to handle the people's business here in the Georgia State Senate. Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
All right. Thank you, Senator. And thank you, Pages, for being here today. We greatly appreciate all the young folks from around the state that come here and put a good day's work in. So thank you. Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none. The journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and references, Senate bills and resolutions. Secretary?
Senate Bill 198 by Senators Albers of the 56 and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 6 of Title 47 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Legislative Retirement System. Senate Bill 199 by Senators Watson of the 11th and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 5 of Senate Bill 200 by Senator Moore of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 2 of Title 1 of the OCGA relating to persons and their rights so as to provide that
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 201 by Senators Walker of the 3rd, Senators Walker the 3rd of the 20th and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Code Section 10-1-393
Insurance and Labor.
Senate Bill 202 by Senators Jones the 2nd of the 22nd and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Senate Bill 203 by Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Title 3 of Title 46.
Regulated Industries.
Senate Bill 204 by Senators Jones of the 2nd, the 2nd of the 22nd and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 205 by Senators Watson of the 11th and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Article 1 of Chapter 24.
Insurance and Labor.
Senate Bill 206 by Senators Summers of the 13th a bill to be entitled an act to create the South Georgia Energy Authority.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 207 by Senator Strickland of the 42nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 208 by Senators Hickman of the 4th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 209 by Senators Goodman of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 47 of the OCGA relating to
Retirement.
Senate Bill 210 by Senators James of the 28th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the
State and local government.
Senate Bill 211 by Senators James of the 28th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 7.
Public safety.
Senate Bill 212 by Senators Still of the 48th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 14 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 of Title 20.
Ethics.
Senate Bill 213 by Senators Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 214 by Senators Burns of the 23rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of
Ethics.
Senate Bill 215 by Senators Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 19.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 216 by Senators Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 23 of Title.
Retirement.
Senate Bill 217 by Senators Islam Parks of the 7th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title.
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 218 by Senators Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the OCGA relating to court.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 219 by Senators James of the 28th and others, a bill to be entitled
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 220 by Senators Brass of the 6th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend various
Health and human services.
Senate Resolutions 207 by Senators Orrock of the 36th and others,
Children and family.
Senate Resolution 216 by Senators Parent of the 44th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on
Public
Vulnerable.
safety.
Senate Resolution 217 by Senators Kennedy of the 18th and others.
Education and youth.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading references the House bills.
House Bill 38 by Representatives Martin of the 49th and others, a bill.
Higher education.
House Bill 117 by Representatives Petrea of the 166th and others, a bill to be entitled.
Interstate cooperation.
House Bill 148 by Representatives Carson of the 46th and others.
Regulated industries.
House Bill 162 by Representatives Hagan of the 156th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend.
Judiciary.
House Bill 177 by Representatives Cooper of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 19.
Judiciary.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary Reed, reports of standing committee.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 129 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 141 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huff Stetler of the 52nd District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 130 do pass, Senate Bill 140 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation: that Senate Bill 160 do pass, Senate Bill 116 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th Mr. Chairman. Dear Mr. Secretary, pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.6, I hereby give notice that I will introduce a minority report to be read along with the majority report of Senate Bill 116, which was passed by the Public Safety Committee on Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Sincerely, Senator Jackson of the 41st District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary Reed, bills and resolutions, second time.
Senate Bill 20 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, veterinarians, student loan repayment who practice shelter medicine and nonprofit pet sterilization clinics provide, create the State Veterinary Education Board for Shelter Medicine and Pet Sterilization. Senate Bill 28 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, Red Tape Rollback Act of 2025 enact. Senate Bill 56 by Senator Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, Georgia State Indemnification Fund, the Department of Administration Services to purchase annuities for the payment of indemnification claims, authorize. Senate Bill 85 by Senator Brass of the 6th and others, grants for foster children, a grant program to provide grants to former foster youth who meet eligibility requirements subject to specific appropriations established. Senate Bill 86 by Senator Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others, alcoholic beverages, retail dealers to offer discounts to consumers through premiums, coupons, or rebates on alcoholic beverages purchased for consumption off the premises authorized. Senate Bill 111 by Senators Albers of the 56th and others, Georgia Consumer Privacy Protection Act, enact. Senate Bill 119 by Senator Goodman of the 8th and others, manufactured or mobile homes, limited exceptions to circumstances under which a manufactured home shall become a real property, provide. Senate Bill 126 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, Completion Special Schools Act, certain students to be enrolled, lower the age of eligibility from 18 to 16. Senate Bill 131 by Senator Hodges of the 3rd and others, Georgia Board of Healthcare Workforce, Georgia Healthcare Professionals Data System Establishment. Senate Bill 154 by Senator Hatchett of the 50th and others, United States Department of Education, references from the OCGA, revise or remove. House Bill 15 by Representative Williamson of the 112th and others, Banking and Finance Update Terminology Provisions. That completes the order, Mr. President.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Recognize the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 27th and 28th for business outside the Capitol, sir.
Without objection, senators from the 27th and 28th are excused. Recognize the senator from the 51st.
Yes, sir. I'll ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 4th and the 47th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, senators from the 4th and the 47th are excused. Any other? Recognize the senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 27th.
Without objection, the senator from the 27th is excused. Any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Let's circle it. Do you have the password? Yeah. I actually have. It is now time for the morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all conversation. I would ask that the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. And I now recognize the senator from the 42nd to introduce our chaplain of the day and lead us in our pledge.
Good morning. Y'all please join me in the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Georgia flag. Pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. Good morning. Thank you. Very warm room today. I have the honor of welcoming for the third time, 3 years in a row, Pastor Jeff Dawes. Pastor Dawes is from Stockbridge Community Church, right on the border of my district and the senator from the 10th district outside of Stockbridge. As I mentioned, the third time he's been with us, he was with us at Sine Die last year. I was originally introduced to Pastor Dawes from Pastor Benny Tate, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, your great friend as well. And he told me I need to get to know this gentleman in my hometown. And what I've learned about Pastor Dawes is he is a true force for Christ in our community. He has led the effort for the Pray for Schools movement in Henry County with all 50 schools because of Pastor Dawes coming together and having people in the parking lots for school every year praying for our students. He is someone that has, like a lot of us during session at least, has people tug at him all the time. Got a very large church, a very large community that looks at him. Despite that, the best thing about Pastor Dawes is he spends time every single week praying for people like me. He sends me a text every single week, and I'm not the only person he sends that text to, I'm sure, that talks about what he prayed over that day for me, and that means a lot to me. It tells you about his true character, someone that's not just out there in the community for all of us to see, but behind the scenes, truly serving Christ. Y'all, please help me welcome Pastor Jeff Dawes. Go get him.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Strickland. It's an honor to be here, and I just want to say to all of you, thank you for what you do. I know that your job gets overlooked many times, and you probably hear just the complaints, but I just want to say thank you from all of the people in the state of Georgia. We appreciate what you do, and you coming here and making us better. So thank you so much. I just want to share with you, just of course, briefly today. I don't know if you ever have the thought, what do you do when you don't know what to do? You ever had that thought? What do you do when you don't know what to do? And I love the Bible because it lays out all these plans. And there's a passage in 2 Kings 7 that talks about this situation with these 4 leprous guys, these guys that had leprosy. They were on the outside of Israel's walls. They couldn't go in the city, and in the city anyway, there was a severe famine going on at this time. Nobody had any food. And then the reason that they were in a famine is because an enemy army, the Syrians, had made a wall around that and cut off all the supplies. And here these 4 men that have leprosy, disease, they can't be around people, are sitting outside the city gates. And they say this to themselves. They say, if we stay here in this position, we're going to die. If we go back into the city, there's a severe famine there, and we're going to die. And if we go forward into the enemy's camp, we're probably going to die. I don't know if you've ever been in those situations before, to where it seemed like every decision was one that was going to be of loss. But it's amazing how our God always has a plan. The Bible tells us that those Syrians said, okay, if we go into the city, we're going to die. Back in the city, back in our past, we're going to die. If we stay here, we're going to die. If we go into the enemy's camp, we're going to die. So what should we do? And their decision was that they would walk forward in faith toward the enemy's camp. And as they begin to walk toward the enemy's camp, it's amazing what happened. God caused a noise. And the enemies of Israel heard the sounds of great chariots and horses coming, charging toward them. And the only thing that was walking toward them were 4 leprous men, diseased men. It scared them so much, it scared the enemy so much that they abandoned everything and they just took off running, fleeing for their lives. Thousands of people left because God caused a noise. And so what about you? Where are you at today? You know, many of you probably have been tempted, okay, if I go back into my old ways of life, you know what's there. That's why you left it. It was bad. You die. If you stay where you are personally in your personal life and you don't move forward, you know that death is there. You've got to make a decision. And many times right now, you're saying, okay, well, my option to go forward looks like I may die as well. What do? You keep calling on God and he causes a noise. He does what you cannot do. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever seen God cause a noise? There's a lady in my church, I never will forget, her name was Virginia. Virginia was blind. And she'd been praying, God, please heal my eyes. And I never will forget the morning that I got a phone call from Virginia. She was in her 60s now. And she said, Pastor, you're never going to believe this. I said, what is it, Virginia? She said, today, God healed my eyes. I woke up this morning, and I can see. And I never will forget her in her first time walking into our church, being able to see a divine miracle. And she walked in the door, and she said, I can never believe this is what it really looked like. I know that when she saw me for the first time, she was a little disappointed. My voice sounded a lot more sexier than I look, I'm sure. Also, have you ever seen God cause a noise? If I go back, I'm going to die. If I stay here, I'm going to die. If I go forward, I don't know what's going to happen. I may die. I remember, I've been the pastor of my church, will be 30 years this April. And I remember about 20 years ago, it wasn't so good. Those things that Brian talked about, if it had been 20 years ago, it had been bad. People were leaving. Financially, we were broke, and we were going out. As a matter of fact, the next Sunday, I was going to go up and tell our church that we were closing the doors and that we were going to sell the church because financially we were just so bad. And I remember weeping and telling God what a failure I'd been. And that when I was going to move my wife back to her family, and I never was going to try to be a pastor again because I'd failed. And I remember after saying that prayer, how 20 minutes later, that after saying that prayer, begging God for months, and when I said I'm finally over, God caused a noise. And I never will forget that person to come in, and there was a financial means miracle within 30 minutes of after that prayer. So what do you do when you can't go back? Because you'll die. If you stay where you are, you will die. I can always tell you the best gamble is always to move forward with God in faith. About 6 years ago, I walked into a hospital room. I'm a pastor. I walk into a lot of hospital rooms. But this time it was different. It was my brother, who's younger than me. The diagnosis had come down. It was stage 4 pancreatic cancer, a death sentence. The doctors looked at us and said, you got 3 months to live. Do whatever you want to do. And I never will forget that day. My brother looked at me and he said, Jeff, this diagnosis is not for me. It's for somebody else. Meaning that God's going to grow somebody else's faith because God's got this. This is not for me, it's for somebody else. And here I know, because I've been with so many people that get that diagnosis and I've done their funerals, knowing what it was going to be. And so 3 months come and went, and he's still alive. And the doctor said, well, listen, you may be one of those that you may make it a year. And so we prayed and we continued to pray, and he made it to 12 months. And we celebrated that year like never before. His birthday was amazing that year. But he's going to die. And then they said, if you make it another to 18 months, that's probably not going to happen. But he made it to 18 months. And I just want to tell you, it's been 6 years. And every time those doctors look at my brother and tell him that he's going to die, God causes a noise. Every time. And today he's still alive. He's working well every day. He's only missed a few days of work. He's got hair and I don't. I'm telling you today, the reason I'm here today is to tell you this, is that you can't go back. And you can't stay where you are. You have to move forward. And always the best gamble, even if it looks like you're walking right into the enemy's territory, is to always trust God that he'll cause a noise. And I don't know where you are today, all of you. But I'm telling you, we've got the God that's a noise maker, and he can do it for you. Let's pray. God, today we come before you because we believe that you do what you say you can do. And Lord, in this room, with a crowd this size, there's many people that are standing here today that are contemplating on going back. Going back. But there's nothing back there. Everything they left is back there. It's back there. It's no good. And there's many that are sitting here just saying, I'm done. And they're just going to stay where they are. And if they do, they will die. But God, you're calling all of us to move forward in faith, even if it looks like we're walking into the enemy's camp, and that you will do what we cannot do. I pray for those today that are struggling, oh God, medically today, that you would cause a noise. Those, oh God, that are struggling financially today, that you would cause a noise. God, those that are struggling in their marriages today, that you would cause a noise. Those that are struggling with their children today, God, that you would cause a noise. And Lord, those that are struggling, oh God, with relationships under this dome, I pray today, oh God, that you would cause a noise and there would be breakthrough. I pray this prayer in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. Thank you so much, everybody.
If I could have everyone's attention. If I get everybody's attention real quick, we always like to introduce our doctors of the day, and Dr. LaJune Oliver with Kaiser has a family practice. Oh, I'm going to introduce her, Senator. No. No, we have a senator I'll let Senator from the 32nd say a few words about her, but this is a homegrown talent right here. She's graduated from Mays High School right here in Atlanta, went to Emory undergrad. Yeah, there you go. And then got her, went to medical school over in Augusta, Georgia. So we're glad to have her. And Senator from 32nd, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you guys will welcome Dr. Oliver with Kaiser, family physician. She focuses on healthy lifestyles and prevention, which is very important. She's a native Georgian, and we have realized that it's very important to grow our own medical professionals in the state of Georgia, and that means medical school, residency, and everything beyond that. So she speaks to a lot of groups about prevention, and we are so glad to have her. So I'm going to invite her to say a few words. Dr. Oliver.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. President, Senator Kirkpatrick, and Senator James in her absence, and to all of our hardworking senators. It is my privilege to serve as your doctor of the day today. I do bring greetings from the Southeast Permanente Medical Group, and I certainly want to extend my sincere gratitude for your selfless service and commitment. As already been shared, I am a native Georgian, fully medically trained here in Georgia, and healthcare is my passion. So thank you for keeping health top of mind for the citizens here at Georgia. And also, too, as you continue to serve, just want to remind you that you take time to take care of yourself, too. Make sure that you keep your health a priority, get you plenty of rest, and practice healthy habits. So thank you so much for having me as your doctor of the day today. Thanks.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. We have several special guests today. We've got a group from Savannah, Georgia today. Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 77 by Senators Watson of the 1st and others, a resolution congratulating Great Dane upon the 125th anniversary of its founding and for other purposes. Whereas founded in 1900 as the Savannah Blowpipe Company, Great Dane adapted to the growing American steel industry and began building flatbed trailers out of necessity to help move products. And whereas located in Savannah, Georgia, the company was pivotal in the development of the first refrigerated trailers to transport fresh produce from Florida to the northeastern states. And whereas Great Dane trailers serve as the backbone of countless industries, reliably removing everything from life-saving medicine to intricate equipment for concerts, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body congratulate Great Dane upon the grand occasion of the 125th anniversary of its founding and extend best wishes for its continued growth, development, and success. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. That was loud. Recognize the senator from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President. We honor a lot of businesses here, and I'm certainly proud of honoring this business. But many times we look at new businesses, and we sometimes overlook the older businesses. So this business was founded in Savannah, Georgia, 125 years ago. Great Dane Industries has been a big part of our community and is also part of the Statesboro community and also here in Atlanta. Without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Chris Hammond, the Executive Vice President for Great Dane.
Thank you, sir. Hey, good morning, everybody, and thank you for hosting us today. On behalf of my colleagues behind me, Brandy, Alan, Vic, and Anthony, we want to thank you for the recognition. Great Dane was started 125 years ago in the state of Georgia, and we have continuously run operations in the state. We have 4, 5, and 6 generations of Georgians that today still work in this company, and we're highly proud to be a Georgia-born, Georgia-bred company. We invented refrigerated trailers in the industry, which is a linchpin to growing the economy of Georgia as a produce-producing agricultural state. So we are part of what connected Georgia to the rest of the United States and to the world. So on behalf, again, of everyone at Great Dane, thank you for the recognition. And as you're driving down the highway, look for the red oval Great Dane dog, and you will always remember Great Dane was born in Georgia. So thank you very much on behalf of our company.
All right, good job, good job. Yeah. We have some more special guests here today. So, Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 147 by Senators Estevez of the 35th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending the launch, expose, advise, direct Center for Youth and for other purposes. Whereas founded in 2007 by Atlanta native and former Chicago Cubs outfielder C.J. Stewart and his wife Kelly, the Launch, Expose, Advise, Direct Center for Youth aims to empower Atlanta's black youth through the methodology of sports-based youth development, and whereas through direct service programming, LEAD uses baseball for boys and tennis for girls to equip students in Atlanta public schools and Metro Atlanta with the confidence and skills needed to overcome crime, poverty, and racism, and whereas LEAD bridges a critical gap for vulnerable families in inner city Atlanta by offering high-quality sports-based youth development programs that are paid for by the participants' commitment to their grades, attendance, behavior, and community service, thus removing the barrier for monetary costs. And now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend the Launch, Expose, Advise, Direct Center for Youth for its valuable contributions on behalf of the youth of this state, as well as extend best wishes for its continued growth, development, and success. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. Y'all, hey, let me get everybody's attention real quick. We always have special guests here, and the noise is getting a little bit loud right now, and everybody always likes for their people to get the proper attention. So if everybody could quiet it down just a little bit while we do these special presentations, I would greatly appreciate it. Senator from the 35th.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this morning I have the honor of welcoming the LEAD Center for Youth and their co-founders. LEAD Center for Youth. LEAD. L stands for Launch, E for Expose, A for Advise, and D for Direct. This is an organization here in Metro Atlanta that uses sports, specifically the sports of baseball and tennis, to teach black youth how to overcome 3 curveballs that threaten their success: crime, poverty, and racism. And through this methodology, their co-founders, C.J. Stewart and Kelly Stewart, and a great team of staff use sports-based youth methodology or development to inspire and equip black girls and black boys with the empowerment that they need to live sustainable lives of significance. They deliver year-round experience through their Pathway to Empowerment programming that includes activities along 4 pillars of focus: athletics, academics, civic engagement, and commerce. And colleagues, I've had the opportunity and the honor to mentor youth through this program. And I can tell you that the youth pour as much into you as a mentor as you pour into them as mentees. And I am honored here this morning to thank them for all of their hard work across Metro Atlanta. And as a Senate body, I appreciate y'all in joining me and acknowledging them and thanking them for their great work. Please give us a warm welcome for co-founder C.J. Stewart. And I should also note that C.J. and Kelly are connected in the community in a number of ways, but one of their most important connections, they tell me, is through Leadership Georgia and their affiliation with the Rules Chairman, Matt Brath. All right. C.J.?
And thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Good morning, everyone. My name is C.J. Stewart. I'm the co-founder and chief visionary officer for LEAD Center for Youth. Our mission is to use sports-based youth development to teach black youth in Atlanta how to overcome the 3 curveballs that threaten their success, which is crime, poverty, and racism. I'm standing here today because of our dear friend and colleague on the front line for youth. Thank you, Senator Estevez, for sharing your platform with me, my team, and the hundreds of youth in Atlanta we serve each day. I'm joined today by my wife, Kelly, our CEO, our directors, Bree McClendon and Mackenzie Stewart, and our board chair, Des Thornton. I also see Senator Brass, one of our fellow classmates from Leadership Georgia, class of 2023, best class ever. My wife, Kelly, and I founded LEAD Center for Youth in 2007, but LEAD unofficially started when I was born in 1976. Baseball literally saved my life. A Grady baby born to a teenage mom and a young father, we lived in the Bankhead community in the housing projects, Hollywood Brooks. I fell in love with baseball when I was 8 years old, and I say it saved my life because this was at the height of the growing crack epidemic. While I was generally a good kid, life could have gone either way for me because of the environment I grew up in. One day, my aunties saw me using sticks to hit rocks in my grandma's backyard on Beecher Street, and they saw I had fashioned some styrofoam cups into makeshift wristbands. They knew then they had to get me involved with organized baseball. I believe that decision changed my life trajectory. I was surrounded by community leaders as coaches in my rec league at CYO Cascade Youth Organization, And the civil rights leaders I was reading about would often be at our games cheering us on. A sense of pride, belonging, empowerment, and protection, that's what the beautiful game of baseball gave to me. And it's my pleasure and privilege to provide that same feeling for over 300 black youth in Atlanta who are still overcoming the same curveballs of crime, poverty, and racism I had to overcome. There are many quotes that I love that speak to the power of sports, and I'll leave you with one of my all-time favorites by Nelson Mandela. Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair. It is more powerful than governments in breaking down racial barriers. It laughs in the face of all types of discrimination. Thank you.
All right, we got one last special presentation. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 89 by Senators Burns of the 23rd and others, a resolution congratulating and commending Ms. Patria Brown and for other purposes, whereas Ms. Patria Brown is the state recipient of the Technical College System of Georgia 2024 Exceptional Adult Georgia in Literacy Education Award, which recognizes adult learners in pursuit of excellence and for other purposes. Congratulating and commending Ms. Rhea Brasher and for other purposes, whereas Ms. Rhea Brasher has been selected to compete for the honor of becoming the state recipient of the Technical College System of Georgia's 2024 Adult Education Teacher of the Year Award and for other purposes. Congratulating and commending Mr. Nicholas Rucker and for other purposes, whereas Mr. Nicholas Rucker is the state recipient of the Technical College System of Georgia's 2024 Georgia Occupational Award of Leadership, which is the first program of its type in the nation to honor outstanding technical college students and for other purposes. Congratulating and commending Mr. Shiroko Farley and for other purposes, whereas Mr. Shiroko Farley has been selected as the state recipient of the Technical College System of Georgia's 2024 Rick Perkins Award for Excellence in Technical Instruction. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body congratulate and commend Ms. Patria Brown, Ms. Rhea Brasher, Mr. Nicholas Rucker, and Mr. Shiroko Farley for their outstanding achievements. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. Recognize Senator from the 23rd to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we have a special treat because we have the top of the cream of the crop of the Technical College System of Georgia today to recognize and congratulate them. Let me share with you a quick overview of who they are and what they have done for Georgia. First of all, Ms. Rhea Brasher is the 2024 TCSG Adult Education Teacher of the Year. This is the instructor who provides adult education at the Southern Regional Technical College, and she is certainly recognized for her excellence in instructional knowledge and practice. Second, we have Ms. Patria Brown, actually, I believe a student, is that right? A student who is the Exceptional Adult Georgian in Literacy Education. So she has enjoyed the Eagle Award. Congratulations to her for that. The Eagle Award has been around for 31 years, and it promotes adult education. There are 22,000 adult education students in Georgia. Ms. Brasher is with the Cobb County School District and TCSG. Our third guest is Mr. Shiroko Farley, a faculty member from Central Georgia Technical College. He is the commercial truck driver per excellence. Is that right? He trains the young men and women who drive those big rigs up and down our highways, and we desperately need more of those. And we're grateful for his innovative teaching practices and his leadership skills. And then finally, we have Mr. Nicholas Rucker. Mr. Rucker is the Gold Award winner. Is that right? Where are you, sir? There you go. He's the Gold Award winner. That is the Georgia Occupational Award of Leadership Award for 2024. The Gold program has been around for 52 years. There are 146,000 students in TCSGs, and Mr. Rucker is their physical therapy assistant student at Athens Tech. If you would please help me congratulate these students, and I'm going to turn it over to each of these individuals for a moment of their time.
Thank you, Senator Burns, for this opportunity today to be here with you. I wanted to just share one really important thing with you. My name is Rhea Brasher, and I'm with Southern Regional Technical College in Thomasville, Georgia. And I want to express my sincere gratitude and thankfulness to each of you for your commitment to the vital next step in every 1 million Georgians step for growth and personal education. Every dollar you allocate for adult education helps someone make their future brighter, their community stronger, and our state better equipped for prosperity. Recently, while representing TCSG at the State Board Conference in Savannah, I spoke with Dr. Brent Stubbs of Hyundai, and he said to me, quote, "Out of all the educational programs in our nation, only one graduates at a graduate every single day. That's what is so good about the GED program," unquote. That is so true. And it is very likely that somebody in your town, county, or voting district will complete their high school education today. That means tomorrow will be a brighter day for Georgia because our technical colleges offer a path to growth through education. That's why I choose to be an adult educator, because I want to be a part of someone's brighter future. Thank you so much.
The mic, I'm short. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. What an honor it is to be here. I had a speech prepared, but I'm gonna make it quicker than that. This high school dropout teen mom is standing before you today. Proud to say I have my GED. I'm a college student. I'm the Eagle Award winner. I am the national winner for adult learning also. And it's all because of my start with Cobb Adult Education System and the technical college systems of Georgia. So I want to thank you, and I do want to touch on my speech a little bit because I really love this part. But I would like to say that one thing that I really enjoy about the technical college systems of Georgia is like they give you the steering wheel and a map and told me the world was mine, and it was up to me which way I would like to drive it. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank you legislators for this opportunity to be here today to just share who I am and what I do and why I'm so passionate about technical education. See, technical education, it gave me my start, but not only did it give me my start, it's what saved my life. See, if you've heard my story or if you Googled it or something, it's out there, but you see how my mess has turned into a message. So I'm just grateful for this opportunity to just have this platform just to be able to share with upcoming people who are trying to better themselves and get out of the situation they're in and let them know that there is a better way. With my past coming from the single mom and coming from the drug addictions and coming from alcohol and everything that I've been through, now I'm here where I am, but it has been an easy journey. So having the opportunity to just share with people, letting them know that, hey, there is a better way. It's not all about where you come from, but it's about where you're trying to go. And I'm just happy to be that light, to be able to just shine into dark areas of other people's lives. Thank you.
I also would like to say thank you to all the legislators and policymakers for inviting us here today. I would also like to thank you for your unwavering support and belief in us as a technical college system. What I'm about to say may be a bit philosophical, but it's truly what I feel when I think of my college, Athens Technical College, and the technical college system of Georgia. You see, as you consider human beings, we are the only living creatures that can be in a situation and not like that situation, and if given the proper tools and resources, we can change that situation to become more of what we would like to see. In other words, we have the ability and the power to create better futures for ourselves. When I consider the technical college system of Georgia, what I see is a vehicle by which an ordinary individual can come through the doors, they can receive extraordinary resources and tools, and then they go out into the world and they can create better futures for not only themselves, but also their families, their communities, and the citizens of this exceptional state called Georgia. I am honored and privileged to be the ambassador for technical education in our state, and I am so proud to be a student at Athens Technical College. Thank you.
Are there any unanimous consents? Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? I recognize the senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am delighted today to honor the Georgia Vision Alliance for its exemplary contributions to the blind and visually impaired community in Georgia. The Georgia Vision Alliance has been a steadfast advocate for the blind and visually impaired community, working tirelessly to advance accessibility, equality, and opportunities across the state of Georgia. This distinguished organization has demonstrated unwavering commitment to creating an inclusive society where individuals with visual impairment can lead independent, fulfilling, and dignified lives. The Georgia Vision Alliance has provided invaluable resources, education, and advocacy for policies that promote accessibility, foster independence, and empower those affected by visual impairment. Under the exceptional leadership of its chairman, Alice Reckard, and co-chairman Stephanie Scott and MacArthur Jarrett, the Georgia Vision Alliance has championed the establishment of a Commission for the Blind in Georgia, a transformative initiative that has garnered widespread support and recognition for its potential to improve lives. You all can come on down so they can see you. The Alliance efforts have inspired communities, legislators, and organizations to prioritize the need of the blind and visually impaired, fostering collaboration and progress in addressing critical accessibility issues. The dedication of the Georgia Vision Alliance exemplifies the spirit of compassion, resilience, and service that defines the best of Georgia citizenry. There are two bills that we have set forth, we will bring it back this year, and one is the Braille Education Act to make sure that the children of Georgia have Braille, and the other one is the Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. There are about 250,000 persons in this community, and we want them to know today that the Georgia State Senate values them and will make sure that we have a commission there to support them. We have with us today Ms. Stephanie Scott of the Georgia Vision Alliance. Stephanie, raise your hand. Cicely Nipper, Georgia Coalition for the Blind. Ann McQuad, Deaf and Blind Representative in Georgia. Dorothy Griffin, and Valerie Hester with the Business Enterprise Program. They have an interpreter here today. We have others up in the gallery. If you're in the gallery, please stand so we can welcome you to your house, to the people's house, and know that we value you here today. So, senators, would you please welcome the blind and visually impaired community to the Georgia State Senate. And raise your hand right here on the side. Thank you so much, and we want you to know that you have been here before, and this time we're going to get those two bills across the finish line because the Georgia State Senate supports the blind and visually impaired in the state of Georgia. Thank you very much. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize Pro Tem for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I rise today to proudly recognize and celebrate Mercer University Day 2025 here at the Capitol. As I know what you're thinking, and I promise that this is more than just a shameless plug for my alma mater. But with full disclosure, I did spend my undergraduate years and law school time at Mercer, and so I do have a slight bias with a lot of love for Mercer. Since its founding in 1833, Mercer has consistently shaped the minds of students, preparing them to lead in a diverse array of fields, including law, medicine, business, engineering, and of course the arts. With over 9,200 students across 12 schools and colleges as the current student body, Mercer remains at the forefront of academic distinction and community engagement, steadfast in its commitment to excellence. Mercer's mission, which is, quote, to teach, to learn, to create, to discover, to inspire, to empower, and to serve, is a guiding principle that reflects the institution's dedication to equipping its students with both the knowledge and values necessary to drive positive change in the world. As a proud representative of Macon, Mercer's impact on our community back home is profound, and the beating heart of Macon is a vital part of our local culture. My duty under the Gold Dome is to continue supporting Mercer's mission by ensuring that Georgia's remains a place of higher education and where it thrives. Colleagues, please join me for a warm welcome for anyone here that may be associated with Mercer, and if you're in the gallery, please stand and let us honor you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Always good to have the students of Mercer down here and all the faculty and everybody else that comes with it. It's a good program down there in Macon, Georgia. Glad to have y'all. Recognize the Dean of the Senate, Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to recognize some very important visitors from Columbus, Georgia today. The Reese Road Learning Academy of Columbus, Georgia, 1 through 4th grade of these great future leaders are visiting with us today to learn about the operation of our Georgia State Senate and government. If they're in the audience or in the gallery, would you please stand and let us welcome you? Can you join me, Senators? Welcome the Reese Road Academy. Thank you very much. Enjoy your visit. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, yeah, good to have all those young folks in those pretty red jackets up there. Good to have them. Recognize the Senator from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to draw everybody's attention to the map on your desk. It's federally health qualified centers. As you'll see, there are over 36 health center organizations, but there are over 330 clinical sites throughout the state of Georgia. And I think that all of us really need to appreciate that they do a wonderful service for our community, all of our communities for that matter. Last year they saw over 700,000 patients, and I think they may be up in the gallery if they wouldn't mind standing, anybody with the Federal Health Qualified Centers. Thank you very much.
Recognize the Senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to let this Senate know an interesting trivia question. There's an interstate missing on this map, and I was going to see if there's any senator who can figure out which interstate's missing. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair hearing none. You have before you a consent calendar of privilege resolutions. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? Chair hears none. The resolution on the consent calendar is adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? All right, moving on to the rules calendar. Secretary Reed, Senate Bill 96.
Senate Bill 96 by Senators Eccles of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to Amend Various Titles of the OCGA so as to modernize and update provisions, creating certain boards, panels, authorities, centers, commissions, committees, councils, task forces, and other such bodies, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Government Oversight recommends this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 49th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come before you today asking your favorable consideration on Senate Bill 96. I've tried to go through this process over the past couple of weeks, all the way up until the last minute, talking to some of you with concerns about some of these boards, and we've tried to get as much clarification on that as possible. Senate Bill 96 is a good government board cleanup bill focused on making government more efficient by repealing boards that are inactive or performing duplicative roles. This is not the first board cleanup bill to pass out of this chamber. The senator from the 32nd carried a similar bill that passed last session. So the boards that are being repealed include the Environmental Advisory Council, the Jekyll Island Citizens Resource Council, Stakeholder Advisory Committee, the Governor's Office for Children and Families Advisory Board, the Georgia Volunteer Fire Service Council, the Palliative Care and Quality of Life Advisory Council, the Georgia Council on Lupus Education and Awareness, the Board of Homeland Security, Employment First Georgia Council, Georgia State Games Commission, the Lottery Retailer Advisory Board, and Section 1 of the bill serves as some cleanup language for the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless Commission. It is important to note that despite these changes, no state resources currently available to the Georgia residents will be eliminated or divested. The bill simply reallocates certain board responsibilities to better suited state entities who presently have the proper resources to perform those roles. The changes in the bill include repealing certain boards that have not met in over a decade, some of which have not met a quorum to vote on any measure in several years, or unfunded boards that can fully perform their function without being a state entity. Each of these administratively attached agencies have spoken in support of these proposed changes and were present and willing to testify when Senate Bill 96 was heard in committee and ultimately passed unanimously. Ultimately, this bill will relieve unnecessary administrative burdens on our state agencies and help to make government more efficient. I'm happy to take any questions, Mr. President.
You do have a couple questions, Senator. Recognize Senator from the 41st.
Thank you. Does Senator yield?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I think you, as you were closing your comments, you made a statement about each of the commissions or agencies that were involved. Can you just repeat that portion for me so I make sure that I understood in terms of their compliance or agreement to this? It was the last paragraph of your speech.
The changes in this bill include repealing certain boards that have not met in over a decade, some of which have not met a quorum to vote on any measure in several years, or unfunded boards that can fully perform their functions without being a state entity. The administratively attached agencies have all spoken in support of this bill. Every single one of them have spoken in support of it, and were willing to testify on behalf of the bill when it was in committee.
Do you further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you specify what you mean by the administratively attached agency? What does that mean? And this is in specific reference to the Lupus Foundation, or the Lupus portion in this bill, Lupus Council. Thank you.
Specifically,
what agency is attached to that council that has approved this?
Department of Public Health. That's where we want to move it to.
Okay, thank you.
Recognize Senator from the 17th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does Senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we talked to you about this, about the Lupus Foundation, in your comments, you said that these organizations or these commissions or councils have not met in over a year. And I happen to serve on that board, and we meet every month, if it's virtually or whatever.
Some of them haven't met in over a year.
But this one is active, and I think in the very beginning, it was you're moving it to public health. But there's really no guarantee that it will be moved there, because the bill just says that it's going to be disbanded. And they do wonderful work. They have rheumatologists, they have kidney doctors, and they educate the community and doctors on lupus. And there are about 60,000 persons living with lupus in Georgia now. And I think last week or week before, we just had Lupus Day, and I came to the well and talked in support of that. And I know we've talked to you, and you're trying to rectify this, but there is really no guarantee that it will be done. Is that?
I can guarantee you that the funding and the grant money is not going anywhere.
The funding and the grant money is not going anywhere.
Yes, ma'am.
But the governor's office,
the grant's going to continue to exist under the Department of Public Health. The Lupus Foundation can continue applying for those grants.
but is it not true that there is no guarantee that this will not be disbanded?
We're doing away with this board.
The bill said you're doing away with the board,
Yes, ma'am.
but you're promising us that it will not be done.
I'm promising you that this does not take away the funding for those grants. Excuse me. But DPH is going to administer those grants.
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator from the 36th, do you have a question, or you want to speak once the senator yields a will?
Yield?
Yes, ma'am.
For some questions. I am aware, isn't it true, of the history of the long work of 8 years that people in this chamber and advocates in the hall worked to create the Lupus Council. And isn't that true that I'm aware? You may not know that, but now you do.
Yes, ma'am. The senator knows what she speaks.
Thank you. And so I was alarmed to see that this council that I know to be very active and actively funding, they are taking that money that is in the budget for that council, again, which took years to get in the budget. And to take this sweeping, lopping off the heads of this agency as well as other things like the palliative care. They're meeting real needs of real people. I go to the annual lupus march and rally every year in Piedmont Park, isn't it true? And 100,000 people show up, isn't it true, for that, because their families are impacted by this dreadful disease that's underdiagnosed and undertreated. And that, isn't it true, was the reason to come down here and advocate for a lupus day and to create this council. And if I understood you correctly, what you said was that money gets moved down to the Department of Public Health, and they decide where it goes.
Yes,
Isn't
ma'am.
it true? And what did I understand you when that you said that this council membership won't exist anymore, but they can feel free to apply for grants from the department. That is not the same as the money going to the Lupus Council. I mean, they stand in line with everybody else for money. Is the point? Isn't that true?
You're correct.
So we're concerned, and I understand from the conversations that have been conducted with people in the governor's office as this bill moved forward, that it's possible to look at how to approach this when the bill is in the House, which is where it's headed to address these concerns. Because isn't it true that the people on this entity, the Lupus Council, no one was consulted, no one had any idea this was happening, isn't it true? And my question is that how you run a railroad or a state government? Is that how you treat the people on these councils that have put in their time and work to support these issues and utilize this funding for the good causes for which it's intended?
I know the governor's office worked in good faith all the way up until last minute this morning. And we're going to do everything I can to make sure that these funds stay available to the folks with lupus who advocate on behalf of this. I'm not in a position to negotiate right here this morning, but in good faith, I think that's what we're working toward.
I appreciate your commitment to stay the course and work for good outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Mr.
right.
President, I yield the well.
Senators yielded.
All right,
Senators
sorry.
yielded.
All right, okay.
You don't have any more questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection for the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 35, the nays are 18. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Secretary will read Senate Bill 98.
Senate Bill 98 by Senators Cowsert of the 46 and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 29 of the OCGA relating to guardian and ward, so as to provide for county conservators generally, to provide for respective rights and responsibilities of county conservators and county guardians, to provide that county administrators shall serve as ex officio county conservators, to make conforming changes, to revise and provide for definitions, to provide for the change of designation of county guardian to county conservator by operation of law under certain circumstances and subject to an exception, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Children and Families recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd District Chairman. Mr. President, Children and Families offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 98, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 29 of the OCGA relating to guardian and ward, so as to provide for county conservators generally, to provide for respective rights and responsibilities of county conservators and county guardians, to provide that. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 46.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I bring you a bill here, Senate Bill 98, on behalf of the Department of Human Services, which has a division of aging services that takes care of elderly people that are incapacitated and also of minors that are unable to handle their own affairs. Our code section in the guardianship code was changed some years ago, and we have what are referred to as county guardians, which are sort of a last resort if there's a person that's a minor or disabled person or an aging person that can't handle their own affairs that can serve as their guardian. There's also a conservatorship to handle the money and financial affairs of these incapacitated people, minor people, or aging people. When we changed the code a few years ago, it failed to list as a county conservator in addition to a county auditor and this county guardian, and that's all this does is add that in various places of the code so that it's clear there are two different roles, a guardian of the person and a conservator for the money and resources. So I would ask your favorable consideration. I'm happy to yield to any questions if there are any.
You do have one question, Senator. Senator from the second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
I'm glad to yield to you, Senator.
Senator, would this legislation allow for counties to have an official staff person without having to hire private practice attorneys that tend to charge usury fees that, you know, most conservators or folks who have conservatorships are unaware when the probate court hands off to their county conservator and it's a private practice attorney, this person would be a staff person? Is that what this bill will do?
That is, and that's what they already have. It's just called the, the county guardian, and this sets forth a separate position as county conservator. It can be the same person, just depends on what role the court assigns to them.
Yeah,
Thank you, Senator.
No further questions.
I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none, and previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Moving on to Senate Bill 102. Secretary.
Senate Bill 102 by Senators Robertson of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled An Act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to gambling so as to revise provisions relative to dog fighting, to prohibit fighting of dogs and gamecocks, to prohibit possession or sale of fighting-related objects, to provide for punishment, to provide for definitions, to amend Code Section 4-8-27 of the OCGA relating to certificates of registration, requirements for issuance of certificate, individuals excluded from receiving registration, limitation of ownership and annual renewal, so as to make conforming changes, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Public Safety recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th District Chairman. The Public Safety Committee offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 102, a bill to be entitled An Act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to gambling so as to revise provisions relative to dog fighting, to prohibit fighting of dogs and gamecocks, to prohibit possession or sale of fighting-related objects, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the Senator from the 29th. Speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this may seem familiar. It was a bill that was carried by our good friend from Dalton last session. Did not make it through the finish line. Our friends over on the other side failed to quite understand the legislation. It's really, really simple. What this legislation does is currently in the United States of America, in all 50 states under federal law, you cannot cockfight. You cannot take a male rooster and your friend take another male rooster, you take them to a place, you strap on steel spurs on their legs or knives and put them in a pit, and people gamble on which of these two fowl will win the fight. That's basically what cockfighting is. These roosters are raised from the time they are stags, which are young roosters. They are given certain nutrients. They are given certain exercises to make them more aggressive, and then they are placed in a pit and they're gambled on who would win. The reason I know so much about this is I grew up in rural Georgia with uncles, a grandfather, and others who practiced this sport. We fought grays. The other side fought reds or other breeds. And what we've done is we've given jurisdiction to the federal government to come in here where our state law enforcement officers have no jurisdiction because it's a federal violation. So if our federal law enforcement task force, our local law enforcement task force go out and they come upon a gambling operation, sex trafficking operation, or multiple other operations where crimes are being committed, and a part of that crime, that criminal enterprise, involves cockfighting, then they must invite the Federal Bureau of Investigation or another federal law enforcement agency in to prosecute that aspect of that case. And it's really unnecessary. This bill has not been that controversial. My office had 2 calls yesterday. One where a gentleman said, "Let me get this clear. You have taken away my dog fighting and now you want to take away my chicken fighting," which our response was affirmative. The second one was a gentleman who raises chickens, and he was concerned that if 2 of his roosters got into a fight, that he could be charged with cockfighting. And of course, we explained the intent portion of the law along with the equipment that's required for cockfighting. It's a very simple piece of legislation, and I feel it is why we like to talk about it sometimes with tongue in cheek, because we're talking about chicken fighting of all things. It is an important part, and we are discovering it more and more here in Georgia in cases involving drug trafficking and sex trafficking. And with that, Mr. President, after asking for everyone's support of this bill, I would stand for any questions.
You do have one question, Senator. Recognize the Senator from the 47th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Senator yield?
I will yield to my good friend from Athens.
You know, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the grays and the reds. Said my great grandfather was the breeder of Gin Gray and Gin Red. I'm going to vote against your bill for the simple fact that I got a little heritage there. But I want you to know it. The bill, as I understand it, when you strap on the spur or the blade,
The gaff, yes,
the
sir.
gaff is actually what will make it illegal.
Yes, sir. If you breed them for that, if you take them and practice them up for that, and if you bet on that. If you and your grandfather in the backyard with a gray and a red, and his gray and reds get in fights, well, if you and your grandfather and 47 other people aren't back there gambling on it and doing other things that come along with it, and if you grew up in that sport, then you understand as well as I do what was required to do everything, then you and your grandfather would be fine.
The gaff doesn't make it illegal, only the gambling on it.
The gaff itself, yes. The equipment involved with chicken fighting, if all of that was included, and if you go to my house right now and you go down into the big room down there, you'll see a black box with roosters painted on it. If you open up that box, you'll find gaffs in that box that belong to my grandfather and belong to my uncle. But those gaffs have not been placed on any chickens since I've owned them, on any roosters, any cocks, or anything else, and they are not used for gambling. They are nothing more than part of my family tradition that I felt it was important that I preserve. But I'm not using them. No more than owning a pair of dice does not make you a gambler of somebody maybe out shooting craps. It's what you do with the equipment that makes it the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Whip.
Thank you, sir. And with that, Mr. President, I'll
do
yield the well.
Yeah, okay. Senator's yielded. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hearing none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none. Committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. And the main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49 and the nays are 3. This bill, having received requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Now, I tell you what, I've seen a coalition before, but that was a coalition. Hey. Senator from the 29th, I thought the meaning of the rule of fight clubs was the first rule was you don't admit there's a fight club. So that's worth voting on again, just to see those three back there voting with each other. Moving on, Senate Bill 138.
Senate Bill 138 by Senators Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 31 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to incorporation of municipal corporations so as to provide for the transition of certain services related to newly incorporated municipalities in certain counties, to provide definitions, to amend Chapter 8 of Title 33 of the OCGA relating to fees and taxes related to insurance so as to revise provisions related to population data, related to newly incorporated municipalities and municipal taxes on life insurance and other insurance companies, to provide for related matters, to provide an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations General recommends this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Government and Local Operations General offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 138, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 31 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to incorporation of municipal corporations so as to provide for the transition and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senators Merritt of the 9th and others offer the following Amendment 1 to amend Senate substitute for Senate Bill 138 by striking lines 158 through 162 in their entirety. That completes the order, Mr. President.
I see that the author of this bill has his wife here today, Miss Hayden Dixon, back there. Everybody give the senator from the 45th spouse big round of applause. He's got his son paging for him today, too. I tell you, we appreciate that. So y'all don't let his bill fail today, all right? So come on down, Senator from 45th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proud to bring Senate Bill 138 before you today. This bill is narrowly tailored to one city that resides in one county here in Georgia. It's the county of Gwinnett, and it's dealing with the city of Mulberry. And as many of y'all know, last year I was the author of legislation that ultimately passed and was signed by the governor that created the city. And then in May, during the primary, the voters ratified that bill, and the city of Mulberry came into existence. Since then, the mayor and city council have been elected in November, and the city started up in January. Unfortunately, Gwinnett County has not been a good partner in this formation of the city of Mulberry. They do not recognize the city of Mulberry. They filed multiple lawsuits. Even in one when I was a part of the transition team for the city of Mulberry, suing me personally. And they currently will not negotiate with the city, will not take phone calls from the mayor or council, dealing with service delivery, dealing with many other factors with the city, the transition of services over. They're simply trying to starve the city out. Now, you may hear from some of my other delegation members saying that now the county's wanting to come to the table, and that has only started from when I passed this bill out of committee. And, and I say if this bill is so important for the vitality of the city, to get the city all up and running, to be able to collect the taxes, the fees, and the insurance premiums that are due them, and if this bill is imperative to do that. And the whole reason for the formation of the city, just one little bit more backstory before I go through the bill, it was because the voters wanted more local control. We had one commissioner that resided, the city of Mulberry had one commissioner that their entire district was the city of Mulberry. And he had taken a stance on certain zonings like apartments, wanting more infrastructure to get caught up before more apartments were approved. And unfortunately, commissioners that don't represent the area were circumventing his vote and voting in projects that the citizens didn't want, and they were outraged and wanted more local control. They felt like they didn't have good representation. And going through the bill, starting on lines 33 through 41, This would require the county to continue to provide police services unless otherwise notified by the city to opt out with 1 year or less notice. Going on to the next portion of it, which would be lines 49 through 68. This provision provides it provides for the county dealing with the ad valorem taxes, and that's what pays for the police services. If there's any surplus to that, that would be returned to the city, and the city would have to use that for public safety measures, like, for an example, hiring like a city marshal or something to that effect. So it would still have to be dedicated to public safety. And the fourth provision would be lines 69 through 77. And then this requires the county to continue to maintain the roads during the transition period. And as many of you know, and if you don't know, when a city's formed, the transition period is a 2-year process as the city gets up and running and services are handed over to the city, from the county to the city. And the reason for this provision is, we're already having issues on county roads where, for example, there's a stop sign that was knocked down, and the county is refusing to come and replace that sign because it's in the city of Mulberry. This would just make them adhere to the transition process and that statute. In section 578, line 78 through 87, this requires the county to continue to maintain dams of a certain size, which is only referring to one dam within the city, and it's Duncan Lake Dam, and it's off of Spout Springs Road, and it's just during the transition period. After that two-year period's up, that would go away. And then also it has nothing to do with any of the other stormwater services dealing with detention ponds or other dams or anything like that in neighborhoods. The city would already take over that and be in full control of that. So it is just for that one lake and that one dam. Section 6, lines 88 through 94, that has to do if the city takes over certain services mid-year or any time during the year from the county, and the county's collected the taxes or the fees for that service, the county must pay the city back a pro rata share based on the time when they took over those services, and they would be performing those services, so they should be due that money. And the county currently is withholding that. And then section 7 is lines 106 through 127, and this is dealing with permitting. If the county's collected permit fees or fees for inspections on certain services dealing with building permits or development permits, if the county has taken those fees and not completed those services, whether they had not done, for an example, they had not done anything and they collected those fees and just turned it over to the city, which they have done, starting January 1, Gwinnett threw their hands up and said, we're not handling any more permitting. We're not taking, we've taken your fee, you've submitted your permit, but we're not doing the work. You got to go reapply at the city of Mulberry, and they did not reimburse any of those funds. And this provision would force them to do that, to do the right thing. What they should have done, the appropriate thing would have been to do is any of those fees or even zonings that had already been filed and accepted by Gwinnett, they would have been grandfathered in, and Gwinnett could have continued that process even after January 1 and finished it, but they chose not to. So this would just make the city whole for having to take over those services. Number 9, this one is lines 140 through 147. This one would prohibit the city from reimbursing the county for the initial elections. The reason for this provision is Gwinnett County, during early voting in May, the early voting precinct that they had available for citizens to go early vote, it was just one early voting precinct that they could go to. It was in Decula. Certain parts of the cities were 30 to 40-minute drive, which made it very difficult for the citizens to vote early for the city of Mulberry. Plus, there was no advertising. They made no effort to let the citizens know that's where they needed to go vote. It was very confusing. And then furthermore, on election day, the precinct that they allowed the residents to vote for the city was separate from the precinct that they voted for the president and all the other people on the ballot. So they had to go to two different precincts. That was not advertised at their local precinct that they normally vote at. So it was very confusing for voters. They made it harder to vote for these folks, unfortunately. And that's the reason for that provision. Section 10. That has to do with, it fixes an issue allowing the city to collect insurance taxes in the year 2025 rather than 2026 and 2027. Section 11, which is 148 through 157. There again, like I spoke earlier, the county has filed multiple lawsuits. Most of them, I believe all of them, have either been dismissed, but I believe the county is still continuing to appeal some of those lawsuits. This would force their hand to pay the legal fees of the city if they lose that lawsuit. And then number 12, lines 158 through 162. What this would do, if the county fails to follow the transition statute, which is a 2-year period, this would suspend their sovereign immunity for 1 year if the court finds they violated this transition law. This provision in the bill is narrowly tailored to the county commission and to this transition period. And then sections 2 and 3 of the bill, this would allow the city to pick. Basically, it wouldn't open up the service delivery for the entire county again for all the cities. This would simply allow the city of Mulberry to adopt whatever service delivery another city has within the county. With that, Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You do have a few questions, Senator. Recognize Senator from the 9th.
Senator, you yield?
I do.
Is it true that really the legislation you're proposing is a result of a fight that you're having with Gwinnett County and Mulberry?
No, this is that is not true. This is a result of Gwinnett County not recognizing the existence of the city of Mulberry and them not willing to start conversations. And they won't even the commissioners won't even take phone calls from the mayor or city council to talk about service delivery or any other necessary things to move the city forward.
Okay. Senator, defer to you.
I do.
So we're still at, this bill is really about city of Mulberry and Gwinnett County. And is it not true that you're using the power of this legislature to resolve your dispute between the city and Gwinnett County?
No, I don't find that to be true. I think the issue is that, again, the county does not recognize the vitality or the city being formed and being operational, and they're circumventing the will of the voters, and that's the issue, and we've got to correct that.
Okay. Does Senator refer to you?
I do.
Would this not be considered local legislation?
Not with some of these provisions. We had to run it as a general bill.
Okay. But does the Senator refer to you?
I do.
You have subsequent bills like SB 137. That is local legislation because it was on the consent calendar. Is that not true?
That's true.
Okay. So still, local, is it not true that this is a local bill that probably should have gone through the delegation as such?
Yeah, actually, if I could have ran this, my good friend from the 9th, if I could have ran this as local legislation, I would actually be the only senator affected by it. So that's why Senate Bill 137 is actually passed through on a consent calendar. If I could have done that, I would have happily done that.
Okay. Senator, for you?
I do.
Okay. So there are some very highly specific conditions, and we know this is specifically tailored to a single case between Mulberry and Gwinnett County, and that's on lines 1 through 5 and lines 25 and 29. The concern here is this bill only applies to counties as stated with 15 municipalities, and that would include Gwinnett County. It's craftily written. So are you not concerned that this is going to create a legal precedent for more specific, for more location-specific legislation, because we represent 159 counties? So are you not concerned that this will set a pattern, that any time a city has a dispute with their county, they can just go and now there's a issue here with sovereign immunity. So now we're setting precedent for this to possibly be applied to anybody's county anytime there is a dispute. Is that not true?
No, this bill has been drafted, there again, narrowly tailored to just Gwinnett County and the city of Mulberry. So, I think it covers that, and simply more with dealing with the sovereign immunity. Like I said, it's narrowed in the bill to just the county commission, and also dealing with this transition period, which is a 2-year period. And as long as the Gwinnett County follows that statute, then they won't lose their sovereign immunity.
Okay, Senator, for you, one more question. So, for other concern, the bill states that if a municipality is forced into legal action due to the county's failure to comply, or if the third party sues the municipality due to a county-related issue, the county must cover those legal expenses and damages. Do you think it is fair that taxpayers on a broader financial, on a broader scale or broadly, should have that burden? Should that burden be put on taxpayers in Gwinnett County?
I would charge back, the 5 or 6 lawsuits that Gwinnett County's placed on the city of Mulberry and myself and the other transition members personally, which cost me personal dollars defending that was a waste of taxpayer dollars throughout Gwinnett.
Okay. So, Senator, we're back to this is a personal dispute between Gwinnett County, Mulberry, and you're using the power of this legislature to handle your dispute.
No. Okay. If Gwinnett would adhere to the transition statute and recognize that the city of Mulberry has been formed and not trying to circumvent the will of the voters in that area, we won't have an issue.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Recognize the Senator from the 29th.
Senator Yield?
I do.
Senator, how old is the city of Mulberry?
So it would be reaching almost 2 months old.
Senator, for the Yield?
I do, for my good friend from the 29th.
Did you go through the process that's required in the Georgia Constitution to create this city of Mulberry?
Yes, I did.
Senator, was there an election held to create the city of Mulberry?
Yes, there was.
Who voted in that election?
All of the folks that were registered within the city limits of Mulberry that chose to go out and vote that day.
Were they Georgia citizens?
They were, yes, sir.
Were they registered voters?
They were.
And what percentage of the voters that voted on this chose to create the city of Mulberry?
It would have been right at 58%.
Of those 58%, how many of them are we responsible for as the Georgia State Senate?
All of them.
Are we responsible to those who went out and voted to create the city of Mulberry, and even those who went out and voted against creating the city of Mulberry?
Yes, we are, Senator.
And is there any government in the state of Georgia in the 159 counties that every decision they make, when they spend money, they are spending taxpayer dollars?
Yes.
And Senator Furthergill?
I do.
Senator, in the committee meeting that this bill went through, is it not true that the county attorney said that he was unaware that voters who wanted to vote for or against the city of Mulberry were discriminated against, unlike other voters where when they voted into this, they had to go to a single precinct and vote and then get in their car and drive to another precinct to vote in other elections in the same county?
That is true, Senator.
So, Senator, would it be right to say that there's been nothing but blocks put in the way of the rightful citizens of Gwinnett County who followed Georgia law and went out to voted to create the city of Mulberry?
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You do have a couple more questions, Senator. Senator from 36. Oh, she wants to speak to the bill. Never mind. So you have no more questions, Senator. Senator, you can yield. You can yield anytime you get ready.
Yes,
Oh,
Mr. President, I think I will yield the well.
Oh, you're going to yield.
And then also, just wanted to let everyone know, as far as Amendment 1, I'm opposed to Amendment 1, dealing with the sovereign immunity, as I stated in the bill, that it is narrowly tailored to this transition period, a 2-year period. It is also narrowly tailored to the county commission, and as long as they adhere to that statute, then there will be no issue with it. With that, Mr. President, I yield well. Thank you.
Senator, I apologize. I thought you wanted to speak to the bill, so I apologize for that. Does any other senator wish to speak to the bill? Senator from the 7th, would you like to speak to the bill?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this Senate bill. We already went over the heads of Gwinnett County to create the city of Mulberry. This was the first power grab, and now we're doing it again by forcing Gwinnett County taxpayers to pay for services without their consent. If this chamber really cared about local control, it would allow Mulberry and Gwinnett County to sit down at the table and negotiate, like every other city and county in Georgia does when these issues arise. But instead, we are using the heavy hand of the states to impose a solution that benefits one side over the other. And let's talk about the outrageous provision in this bill that removes sovereign immunity from Gwinnett County. By the way, this is the first time that something like this has ever happened in Georgia's history. This means that if there is a lawsuit related to these forced obligations, the county can be dragged into court and made to pay all of Mulberry's legal bills, no matter the outcome. Even if the court rules partially in favor of Gwinnett County, it still has to pay all of the city's legal expenses. That's not fairness, that's not justice, that's legislative favoritism enshrined in law. What precedent are we setting here? Are we now in the business of resolving disputes between every city and county in Georgia? Are we going to micromanage intergovernmental negotiations and override home rule whenever it suits political interests? Because if that's the road we're going down, then every city and county in the state should be concerned. I urge you all, regardless of where you stand on this particular dispute, to vote no on this bill. Because if we allow this kind of interference today, then tomorrow it could be your county, your city, your community that finds itself on the wrong end of state-imposed mandates. This is not the role of the state legislature. Let local governments work out local problems without the states tipping the scales. I yield the well.
So we do have an amendment that's already been read, and I understand the senator from the 55th is going to speak to the amendment. You still have okay, well, I'll recognize you then, Senator. Senator from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in opposition of SB 138, just like I rose in opposition of Mulberry being a city from the start. And I had huge concerns then. The measure, it was for an amendment, so yes, voters could decide if they wanted the city of Mulberry. But that bill at that time was rushed through, slapped together, and frankly, it wasn't even a well thought out product. And because it wasn't a well thought out product when it rolled out, now we have lawsuits. There is still questions about if the cityhood is even legal, and that has been why the county that's one of the reasons why they had some reservations about negotiations, because that has not been resolved in the courts as to was it even constitutional for a city like Mulberry with limited services to really be a city. That has not been resolved. Even that piece of legislation, like this one, went around local process and was not done correctly So that's why we're here right now. And I expressed concerns then that there were problems, and there were going to be problems with the way the city of Mulberry, how their charter was written, all of it was done. And now we have problems. And now there's legal disputes. But the abuse of power started last year when the amendment was rammed through this body. That's where it started. So every time there's these disputes between city and county now, the power in this body tries to get through and get around local legislation to ram through what is not well thought out legislation. The reason we're having a problem is this is a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. There's some problems. And part of the dispute is because the city of Mulberry really doesn't have it all together, and that's causing some of the strife with them even forming the city and getting their charter together and elections. All these things are happening as a result of this was not a well thought out city from the start. The legislation was rushed through. So steps can be missed. And sometimes if an issue is if you're getting this much opposition and it's costing you this much political capital and money, maybe it's not the right thing to do. That's what my mom always told me. If something seems a little too hard and you're getting a little too much opposition, that might be a sign it is the wrong course. And I do think residents in the end for Mulberry, they're not going to get what they want. This came about as a result of a zoning issue. And I do believe in the end, Mulberry will not do what it says it is trying to do, and I do think this is going to cost the residents in that area money. And on a practical point, you know, this bill is an ongoing conflict between the city of Mulberry and Gwinnett County. It is sensitive, it's complex, it should be hashed out between the two parties, and 138 is going to make this situation even worse on every front by using the state power to weigh in on one side of the scale. And this is not how good legislation is supposed to work, and how, if we're really trying to form a city, this is how it's supposed to work. Just because you're not getting what you want, and now you're going to bring it to the floor of all your colleagues because you got 33 votes. Disrespecting the local process of us in the local delegation, and no conversations were even had with us. Just as before when we passed the amendment for Mulberry. It's going to set a dangerous precedent by allowing cities like Mulberry to have nearly unlimited leverage over the county government. They get tax revenue without accepting full responsibility for the services they're supposed to provide. They also get what they want with stormwater, infrastructure, law enforcement coverage, and this bill places a burden on the county to figure out this issue, and it doesn't require the cities to act on any good faith. And what's even more insulting is Mulberry was formed because residents were angry with Gwinnett County. You wanted to separate from Gwinnett County. So now you've figured out, oh, now we need Gwinnett County, but we want our cake and eat it too. Want your city? Go make your own city work the way you want it to work. You don't need the county. That's why you wanted a city. It also creates an unequal system of preference for new cities that are allowed to negotiate on this unfair playing field versus cities that have already existed for years and formed their cities in the right way. And that's not even talking about the language that's forcing county to foot the legal bills for the cities. It is a slap in the face to Gwinnett County. The city of Mulberry has consistently walked directly into mistake after mistake with their leaders, and their leaders were warned, and now they want Gwinnett taxpayers to foot the bill. But on a higher level, we have to stop abusing the system surrounding general legislation versus local legislation, because at some point, 33 won't be your number. It violates the spirit of how this system is supposed to work. And it's clear that this is an example of where the majority knew that this wasn't going to fly through our local delegation, so they're forcing it again as a general legislation. I oppose the way that things are supposed to stay local until the majority party wants to force a solution to their dispute between a city and a county. And they want to force a solution that's going to be unpopular with residents as a whole in Gwinnett County. I want to ask all of you to consider the consequences before you decide you want to pass this bill today. Because the sovereign immunity piece, yeah, it's tailored for Gwinnett County now. But we're going to set a pattern for this being tailored for anybody's county. Anytime a city is having a fight with the county, oh, well, you know, they're not negotiating in good faith. Let's just remove their sovereign immunity, which affects who runs for your seats. It affects your law enforcement. It's serious. And I don't know if y'all all got together in a gym somewhere and decided, let's remove sovereign immunity. This is that year we're going to put it in every bill to force situations, because I keep seeing it coming up. So it must be something this body is talking about and the other body, and somebody came up with a brilliant idea. Oh, let's throw sovereign immunity and just start putting it in bills and forcing issues to strong arm people into what we want. Consider the consequences of using this one-size-fits-all solution to address what is a local problem between Gwinnett County, Mulberry, and the senator from the 45th. This stakes intrusion is not welcome, and frankly, it's bad policy. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the well.
The senator has yielded. Does any senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Recognize the senator from the 55th to speak to the amendment that's already been read by the secretary.
My colleagues, those that are here today, I rise for one simple proposition. I do serve a part of Gwinnett County, and I heard about this issue just a couple of days ago. In all due respect to the author of this bill, who is, I'm getting to know, but I find to be a fine gentleman, and I think that he is entitled to have, if he wants to have a city, I think he's entitled to have that, and I support that. I am rising only for one simple proposition, because when we begin to eliminate the governmental immunity of our cities and our counties, it is, as has been briefly stated, a dangerous proposition. It is only for 1 year, but as a litigator, as someone who has had to sue my own county of DeKalb County, I've done that. And they have a policy limit of X amount of dollars. If I had not had that immunity, it would have hurt my county where I live, because it was so egregious, the particular case that was involved. And so we are compensated on the amount of that policy, but that case could have easily been, to my aggrandizement, it would have been a good payday. It would have been about 10 times what was actually paid, at least. But that was not I wanted to have representation of my client and not to punish someone. This proposal actually goes to the extent of punishment. And why does it do that? It does that because in 1 year, if you have no immunity, if the law enforcement agencies of Gwinnett County mistakenly, what did I just say? Mistakenly, not by clear preponderance of evidence, but if they
if they violate any duty or obligation, and that will be interpreted by, I believe, a court of competent jurisdiction. And if they are found to have violated anything for 1 year, that's a heavy hammer to be held over my head. And I stand here for the single proposition of protecting every county in Georgia, because this is a general bill. I was not here when the fight was going on and how one side did this and that and the other, but I even thought, should we even have a mediator? I wanted some time to even try to go and talk to the county myself, because this is not good policy for a city and a county to be fighting each other. It's just not. It's not helping anyone. And should we appoint not a county guardian or a county conservator, should we appoint a county mediator to just mediate and say, guys, come and sit at the same table and work this thing out? Appoint the lieutenant governor. Appoint someone to bring these parties together, because it is not helping any party. And if we have another matter at another part of this county, part of this state, this chapter, I'm just telling you, this is the way I'm reading this. This act is in a chapter dealing with municipalities. And as an attorney, I want to say something. This says I want you to bring this to your attention so that you don't have the unintended consequences. It says any duty or, it says, in the event that a county, I want to say that a county because it has to be written in that way to apply to every county in Georgia. It says a county, but then it says a violation of this from this chapter. This chapter does not limit itself to this small issue dealing with Gwinnett and Mulberry. This deals with the entire chapter. And every county involved in Georgia is covered by this chapter. This is something, and I'm sorry that I'm coming at the tail end of it, because to get in this posture, I'm sure a whole lot, if you're not returning phone calls, that's a serious problem. That's a very serious problem. And I understand the frustration if someone is not returning phone calls. But I would say that this goes a little too far to the extent that every county is impacted by this bill. Every county. Because if you are a county and you are impacted by this chapter, then there is a very terse understanding of the law to apply, to have a finger in the dam that removes sovereign immunity for people who are unintended to be influenced and impacted by this matter. So I am for this bill. I wanted to vote for this bill, except I just got heartburn on this one issue. That only Mr. and I respect the author, but I respectfully request my colleagues to consider even putting a mediator, because we should not divide. That's one thing I'm very concerned about, Georgia being a person's coming from a history of division, going back to division. And that's what this is. They're dividing the county from the city and the city from the county rather than working together. There should be, as a father, when my kids don't play right, you take the ball from them and they figure out how to play right. Okay, Dad, we're going to act right. Okay, Mom, we're going to act right. And that is where this is almost devolving to. But we have to learn how to sit at the table of brotherhood rather than in a courtroom. And I'm sorry to hear about all these lawsuits, but I wanted time myself, because I represent that county, just to get the people to the table. Because I've seen people, I do mediation, I do litigation. I've had cases where I didn't think I'd ever settle. But when we got to the table and we talk, that's how we resolve. Democracy is talking our issues out, not through violence or indirect institutional violence, which this can be too, because in the ultimate end, it is very punitive. I yield the well, and I wish I had more time to talk to my good friend, because I think that we should learn to, I know he's very frustrated, and I feel the frustration, but if we don't learn how to sit together at the brotherhood of, I hear Dr. King talking. Dr. King talked about we're going to community or chaos. And this is going in the direction of chaos. We have to learn to live together. If we don't learn to live together, we're going to die together, because we are shooting holes in our own boat of democracy. And once we get out in the middle of the ocean, we'll be looking at Russia and saying, hey, that's a great alternative, because we're all sinking. And that's a far stretch, but that's where we're going. We got to learn to work together, guys. Thank you, and I yield the well. Please consider, I thought about it, can I do some maneuver with the book to put in a mediator at this point, but the water's under the dam now. The water's way gone. So
Best thing you do
I
right
yield the
now,
well.
Senator, is just yield the well.
I yield the well.
Recognize Senator from the 14th.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now, Senator from the 45th, after the conclusion of this epic floor debate, we reach an epic choice between two universes, one where Amendment 1 passes and one where Amendment 1 fails. If Amendment 1 passes, I, the Senator from the 14th, will support your legislation. But if Amendment 1 fails, I will be voting no on the legislation. And I suspect that some of my colleagues feel the same way. Let us decide wisely at this epic juncture. Thank you, Mr. President.
The senator has yielded. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Hearing none. The question is on Amendment number 1, authored by the senator from the 9th. Is there objection to Amendment number 1? We have an objection. Y'all want to do a hand vote on this, or y'all want to put it on the board? All right. All those in favor of Amendment number 1, authored by the senator from the 9th, will vote yea. All those opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the adoption of amendment number 1, the yeas are 21 and the nays are 32, and this amendment has failed. All right, moving on to the underlying bill. Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 32 and the nays are 22. This bill having received requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed by substitute. All right, moving on. SR 23, Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 23 by Senators Cowsett of the 46th and others, a resolution applying to the United States Congress to call a convention under Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States limited to proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to set a limit on the number of terms that a person may be elected as a member of the United States House of Representatives, and to set a limit on the number of terms that a person may be elected as a member of the United States Senate, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Rules recommends this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 6th District Chairman. Mr. President, the minority report has been attached. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Do you recognize Senator from 46?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll try to keep this brief. We're kind of shifting gears here from local law of local municipalities and counties to federal law, our United States Congress. A little bit of constitutional background is there are two ways to amend the United States Constitution. First, 2/3 of both bodies of Congress can propose an amendment, and that is then submitted to the states for ratification, and it takes 3/4 of the states to ratify it. It's the only way we amend or change our Constitution using the congressional model. In circumstances where Congress will not act, the states have the power under Article 5 of the United States Constitution to call an amendment convention to propose an amendment, just like 2/3 of Congress can do. 2/3 of the states file an application to Congress asking for a convention to be called for those delegates to then propose an amendment. Again, it would be submitted to the states for ratification and require 38 states, or 75% of the states, to pass to amend the Constitution. This Senate resolution is an application to Congress asking Congress to call a convention for the sole, single purpose of proposing an amendment to limit the terms of office of United States congressmen and United States senators. It doesn't say what the length is. That would be agreed upon by the delegates to that convention. This is the type of situation that Congress is not going to act on their own. Our Constitution recognizes that and gives the people a voice where Congress will not. And it is extraordinarily unlikely that Congress would limit their own terms of service. The problem I'm looking to address here is the total dysfunction in the United States Congress that we've experienced really for over a decade now. It is a stalemate, it's infighting, very little is being done to promote the will of the people of this democracy. And I think this will make them get focused. Let us have a say. Do we want this institutionalized bureaucracy, institutionalized office holders that are never defeated? Do you realize that right now over 90% of incumbents are not even challenged and 95% hold their seats? One reason is because money controls federal politics. It is so expensive to run a race where you're representing 800,000 people if you're in Congress, or averaging 7 million people if you're in the Senate. It takes tens of millions of dollars to do that. These congressmen spend about 5 hours a day fundraising so they can hold that seat. 90% of their money comes from political action committees and special interest groups, and that's who controls things. It's not you and me, 1 out of 800,000. One person doesn't make enough difference. Every now and then you find a change agent, somebody like Donald Trump that didn't need money from anybody because he had so much of his own he could run without having to kowtow to special interest. We're in a position now where these special interests contribute 90% of the money to the campaign funds of these incumbents, and they're unbeatable. The statistics prove it. The only way we're going to get turnover and go back to the original intent of our founding fathers and have citizen legislators that go serve their term of duty and then go home is for us to impose some type of limits on the length of time they can serve. There are a few arguments against this that I will just preemptively address. One, why would you leave it up to the bureaucracy? If you limit the length of office, you are ceding power to the deep state bureaucracy. What you're going to find is that the term of service for staffers is way less than for the congressmen and the senators. Same thing with the bureaucrats, and they can be fired at will, as you're seeing happen now in Washington, D.C. They serve at the power of the executive, not at the discretion of the congressional branch anyway. The problem here is that Congress has delegated to these bureaucratic agencies rulemaking authority and governmental authority. That needs to change. Fresh ideas in Congress can change that. The other that we hear often is, what happens if you have a runaway convention and this constitutional amendment convention gets started and the next thing you know, we've got a communist government coming out of it, or a suggestion that we do that. This is tailored specifically to one subject matter, just limiting the terms of members of Congress. There is a separate delegate act that I authored some years ago in the context of a balanced budget amendment, that in Georgia, our delegates must follow the call of this application. They are limited to only consider that one subject matter, or they are recalled and we'll replace them. And they're also subject to criminal penalties. So we don't have to worry about that. But even if, in the worst case scenario, they rejected our laws and proposed other amendments, these are being proposed by 2/3 of Americans, and they must be accepted by 3/4 of the states. It is an unfounded fear to think that you will completely redo the Constitution by having a convention on one subject matter. And people talk back in the Philadelphia, our original constitutional convention. oh wow, they redrew the whole deal at that time. Well, yeah, they did, because the Articles of Confederation were failing. The reason for that Constitutional Convention was to draft an entire new Constitution. What you have to decide here is, do you believe in democracy or not? Do you believe that the citizens are able to propose a change, and then if 3/4 of the states agree to accept it, we should be able to evolve and change? When the system isn't working, you better. This is our mechanism for doing so. Remember the two numbers. It takes 2/3 of the states to agree to hold this amendment convention for it to even happen. That's 34 states. It takes 3/4, 38 states, to ratify a change. What has happened historically is, once there are enough states where Congress sees the people are serious about this, they want us to change and become functional, and this is a way to accomplish it, they will usually propose an amendment themselves or the change. That's what's happened historically on other ones. Now, I have in front of me a minority report from the minority party opposing this. Let me just give you all a little bit of information before you get too deep and start pushing your buttons on it. This has been polled by the Pew Research Center. That is a nonpartisan group that probably leans left. Most of you would have been. And it comes back with data that over 90% of Americans support this. 87% of Democrats support term limits, and 89% or 90% of Republicans do, that were polled. I do not know who is advising the Democratic Party this session, but why do you take a position against the vast majority of your own constituents, your own party members? Do you like the dysfunction that we have in D.C.? Are you willing to do something to give us more of a voice, a more effective government? This is how you get the ball rolling. The other two things you're opposing, I mean, we're just sitting here scratching our heads. You took a minority position to allow boys to play girls' sports, to go into girls' bathrooms, girls' showers, and sleeping quarters, and took a minority position to support that the vast majority of Georgians and Americans just demonstrated in the last election where they stand. You took a minority position to support criminal, illegal aliens in our state that are committing crime. Not just anybody here, but the criminal ones, not to deport them. Took a minority position. Our last election just shown Georgians don't support that. We don't want other Laken Rileys. Please think before you are doing these knee-jerk reactions to the far left tail that's wagging your dog. Does this make sense or not? This shouldn't be a partisan issue. It doesn't poll to be a partisan issue, less than 2 percentage points difference in where Republicans believe and where Republicans believe. Let's set the partisan politics aside. Let democracy work. This is in our Constitution. Let people be heard, make a proposal, and vote it up or down. So I ask you to please support this application to the United States Congress to call an amendment convention for one single purpose, to consider whether we should limit the terms of office, and if so, for how long. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well, but I'm happy to answer questions.
You do have a couple questions, Senator. Recognize the Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I yield.
Senator, is it not true the president of this body cut me off for speaking much shorter than that?
Well, my apologies. I was nervous. I could feel the eyes behind me and might be getting cut any minute, so I will yield.
Recognize the Senator from the 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I yield.
Is it not true, though, that we've already passed this type of resolution in the past for Georgia, and we're already a state ready to go?
Not on a single subject, for sure.
Okay.
Wait, well, this body has passed it several times. The legislature hasn't. The Senate has.
But it hasn't passed out of the General Assembly.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Well, not in the last 18 years.
Senator, is it not true if you're scared, you should say you're scared?
It is true.
Well, I'm a little scared, Senator, of a runaway convention.
All right. Well, there are a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that freak out over that, but I don't think it's a realistic fear if you believe in democracy, unless you fear the will of 3/4 of this country.
Senator, can you clarify that 3/4 for me? So if the convention agrees that and ratifies it with 3/4, does it then come back to the General Assembly to approve what they have done? Or
Yes, two different steps. One is to propose, takes 2/3. Second is to ratify, takes 3/4 of the states. So yes, it will come back to this body.
Is that 3/4 of the members of the convention?
No, of
Okay.
the 50 states in the United States, unless there are more by the time this comes to a vote.
Okay, well, you've calmed my fears. Thank you.
I'm happy to have your vote, and I didn't mean to call you a conspiracy theorist. You just have been hearing from them. We're glad to have you in this body. I yield the will.
Oh, man. Senator has yielded. We do have a late arriving amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Senator McLaurin of the 14th offers the following Amendment 1 to amend Senate Resolution 23 by striking "and" on line 18, inserting a comma in its place, replacing the period on line 19 with a comma, and inserting thereafter, and to enact proportional representation facilitating a parliamentary system, enforceable limits on campaign finance, abolition of the Electoral College, and the protection of individual civil liberties for the modern era. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize Senator from the 14th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today on behalf of the newly organized PAC, Americans for a Runaway Convention. Before you is Amendment 1 to the resolution, which is a slate of really great ideas that we should add to the convention in addition to the senators' focus on term limits. Now note that my amendment does not strike the term limits language from the resolution, because no good idea should be excluded from this once in many generations move under the Constitution to reconsider our fundamental structure. But let me just put before you a menu of a handful of ideas that have come up in addition to term limits. One argument in opposition to term limits is that campaign finance is the real issue, and the senator, the author, spoke to that. What I've put in this resolution is to give flexibility to the members of our convention the ability to talk about campaign finance, enforceable limits. The Electoral College is a system that disadvantages the very state where we are doing business right now because of our population size. It would be great, even though we've gotten a lot of campaign attention, deserved or not, in the last few years. This would mean that candidates would have to travel to every state in the union in order to treat every American the same. One person, one vote. I've put in here proportional representation facilitating a parliamentary system. There are many people crying out for third-party options. I say this as an elected Democrat, that there is a lack of diversity and nuance in the political spectrum because of our first-past-the-post rules. And Democratic theorists who have studied backsliding in Latin American countries and democracy across the world from the 1990s on have come to the more or less theoretical consensus that a strong presidential system can destabilize democracy more than a parliamentary system does. And I wonder if maybe we'll see a little bit of that play out in the next few years. Finally, protection of individual civil liberties for the modern era. Why not talk about the big threats that big data is posing, big tech, our privacy concerns, the fact that we feel like we can't move through the world anonymously anymore. There's a difference in the theoretical literature between privacy and anonymity. Privacy means you can't open a container. Anonymity means, can you use all of my various movements and footprints to piece together a picture of who I am and either sell me things or throw me in jail? These are real questions that we would be ignoring entirely if we limit this fundamental conversation about our structure and its adaptability in the modern era just to term limits. Now, I may be exposing a flaw in Article 5 Convention in general that the senator from the 53rd pointed out, which is once you've got one good idea, you've got 10. And so I would suggest humbly to the body that there's only two options that make sense here. One is to leave this system alone and go get out your vote and let's try to win under the rules we got. Or let's have a much larger conversation about the various ways that our founders envisioned to empower us to respond to the challenges of the modern era, to listen to the many scholars and voices who have opined onto all of these topics, and let's really have a full, deliberative discussion about the future of our democracy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senators yielded. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? So I understand we do have a minority report. All right, recognize, or Senator from 36, would you like to speak before the minority report?
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, colleagues, I'll not take all of your time, but I have a few thoughts to share. The first one being that I don't think this bill will see the light of day when it gets across the hall, but we can, that the dog will wag that tail when it gets there. The author of the bill started out deploring the influence of money in politics. Did he not? I kept listening for the solution to that. What to do about money in politics, big money in politics. I didn't hear it in any of the following remarks. When that is the plague of our existence in politics. I did hear a lot of attacks against the Democrats. I don't know how he thought he'd win our vote for this proposal by kicking mud in our face, but we'll see how that turns out. But he posed an interesting question. And number one, I do believe that the danger of a constitutional convention being overtaken, big money will be playing there. Big news, surprise, big money will play were that day to come about this so-called limited proposal that would simply limit term limits of Congress. The author posed the question, how on earth can you all oppose this when it's widely endorsed and backed? I want to ask you, how can your party continue down the road of policies that fly in the face of the American public's opinion? You know what? Protecting abortion rights as a health issue, a huge majority of Americans believe that we should have left the policy in place known as Roe v. Wade, and instead the party of which the gentleman from Athens is a member runs all over the country putting in draconian anti-abortion laws. And it's a majority position of the American public that they want to protect that right. They want to protect privacy. They want to protect the ability to go to a medical provider and make decisions based on medicine and based on personal considerations, based on family considerations, financial considerations, health considerations that are private, not putting the politicians in the doctor's office. Now that is a majority position of Americans, but one party flies in the face of that and continues to push draconian anti-abortion bills. LGBT rights, you know, they're pretty doggone popular now. There's kind of a broad belief that this equality thing that's in our Constitution really does mean that LGBT people have equal rights and equal protection under the laws of our land, but not this majority party here when we see the constant attacks and demonizing and threats to take away the rights that have been secured for the LGBT members of that community. Guns everywhere. Guns everywhere. This legislature and the Republican governors that signed the bills have run amok, keeping guns readily available, not only readily available, carelessly and callously available. The least amount of training or documentation, capacity, etc., of controlling the access to these assault-type weapons that run through our public places, run through our schools, run through our malls, and leave blood on the floor, blood on the walls, and people in the graveyard, and families mourning. And right in our state, people have come down here and begged for us to have common sense gun safety measures. And what do? We lift the sales tax. We give a sales tax holiday for guns. So that's another example of overriding the majority opinion in this state. You see it all the time. You know, another hugely supported policy here is that we should close the health coverage gap. We should expand Medicaid like 40 other states have done. It's a popular measure. It's a much-needed measure. It's a roadway to healthy population. But here in this state, under the lead of the GOP, no. How about supporting the U.S. Constitution? There's a thought. The majority of Americans believe that we should stick with the Constitution, not erode it, not run roughshod over it, but the majority parties up in Washington running roughshod over it. Got a billionaire, not unelected billionaire up there tearing up programs and throwing people on the street and leaving scientists and professionals of all types of talent and experience to get kicked to the curb because that guy up there likes to say, "You're fired." But the people of the United States support the U.S. Constitution. The people of the United States in large numbers support the rule of law. We see it being broken every day now in Washington. So when the author gets up here and lectures us about the wanton ways and wiles of the Democrats, I just wanted to point out about 4 or 5 glaring signposts of who is trampling on majority opinion in this state and in this nation, and it's not the Democrats, it's the GOP. And one final comment I would make about this Constitutional Convention, which I don't think will see the light of day, but term limits are popular in the sense of throw the bums out, throw them all out. You know, the GOP has been for 30 or 40 years trashing government and telling you that all your problems are caused by government and by government bureaucrats, and that we need to sweep it clean and throw them out. We hear that from that party all the time. And then, surprise, people start distrusting government. The confidence level in government has gone down, down, down as the GOP measures anti-government has gone up, up, up over the last 40 years. But you know what happens when you put in term limits? And by the way, we have them already. They're called elections. And they happen every 2 years and every 6 years for the U.S. Congress. That's how we turn over. And right here in this, under this gold dome, we have had election years where two-thirds of the people coming into the House of Representatives were brand new people. Brand new people. 2/3 of the House, and I've been here and I saw it in real time, were replaced by elections. That's what they do. But when you term limit and throw people out by limiting them to 1 or 2 terms and say, go home, you're done, do you know what happens? Guess who runs things? The lobbyists. Big money loves that. Oh, dump them out in the streets, honey, because bring in a fresh crowd of newbies that don't know where the bathrooms are when they get here, and we're going to be the authority to tell them everything they need to know, the lobbyists. That's what happens. The lobbyists are the stable element in the picture when you throw out the elected officials every term or every 2 terms. That's exactly what happens. And we've seen it in states that pass term limits. So the big money, the deep pocket lobbyists, and the billionaires. You know, I hear tell we've got a few of them around that are interested in taking over our government. You heard that rumor? Which is more than a rumor. You saw who stood behind the president when he took his oath? 4 billionaires, big tech giants. So that's who'd be running things, and they're up there now trying to shovel everybody out of the way so that they can keep their government contracts that run up into billions. And that's who'd be running things, big tech, billionaires, corporations that steal your privacy, violate it constantly, and lie about it. That's why term limits are highly questionable, in my opinion. And yes, we know which party is stomping over the majority positions of the American people. It's not the Democrats, it's the GOP. I yield.
All right, Senator is yielded. I understand we have a minority report. Senator did a pretty good job, Senator. I don't know if you can top that, but recognize Senator from the 44th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to thank the senator from Athens for starting a conversation about what are much needed reforms to our political system. And on the surface, and maybe to many voters, if the poll numbers that he referenced are correct, term limits might seem like a simple or common sense solution. Limit how long representatives and senators can serve, bring in fresh faces, prevent career politicians who may be more responsive to people inside the Capitol than voters from serving ad infinitum. But when you take a closer look, term limits are simply not the right answer to what's broken in our system. But I have to be clear that our system is broken. Not because people are serving too long, but at core, it's because Congress, and indeed this also infects state capitals, is not responding to the priorities of the average voter. Instead, it is captive to the extremes. There are many reasons for this, but partisan primaries, gerrymandered districts, and certainly the influence of money in politics mean that lawmakers are more focused on appeasing activists, big donors, and special interests than in solving real problems for working Americans. That frustration, in fact, is what enabled Trump's hostile takeover of the Republican Party. It's probably also what's driving some of the huge jury verdicts that some in this building are very worried about. People are throwing grenades into a system whenever they can that they view as captive to the rich and big corporations, unresponsive to their concerns, and unable to help them and their families to prosper. And frankly, that's no wonder when you learn that the rich in this country control more wealth now than they did during the Gilded Age, when public outrage forced major government reforms. The spoils of our wealthy society are all going to the elites, and regular folks are suffering. The system is not working, and it hasn't for a long time. I mean, look at us. We spend a whole lot more time on bills to appease activists in our primaries than we do on addressing the concerns of the people who sent us here. I must, on behalf of my Democratic colleagues, although the senator from the 36th did a pretty good job, point out some of the hypocrisy in the author's remarks. Because I have personally witnessed the gentleman from Athens, and in fact, the Republicans in this chamber, vote to create dark money leadership committees that are slanted towards incumbents, and not even all incumbents, just certain incumbents. They encourage corruption. The Democrats fought hard against those. I've witnessed Y'all vote time and again for gerrymandered maps that you know decrease competition and raise the power of activists on either side so that those districts and thereby the people that elect them are less responsive to the broad middle of the electorate and instead are forced, rationally, all of us then become forced to cater to the very activists that is making the regular American so angry, wondering why the things that they care about are not addressed, are not solved. And it's two poles just warring against each other. Well, my friends, that's because that system has been set up that way, and it doesn't work anymore, especially in the information economy that we now have. And it never will work again. If it ever did, that time is gone because of the way technology has, and misinformation and disinformation, and the way people only know little factors. We're way past the time when everyone watched one news program. All of that makes it much worse. But what offends me is that I have witnessed the majority party go to great lengths since I've been here to actually make those problems worse. Again, the gerrymandered districts, the leadership committees. So please don't lecture me on what Democrats do or have not done to try to remove money from politics. Let's also remember that it's Republicans and right-wing interests that fought so vociferously to overturn McCain-Feingold on the federal level with Citizens United, which was also a huge detriment to the very problems that you are now decrying. And I would love it, Senator, if we could work together on some of these reforms because they are so needed. But right now I just am noticing a lot of hypocrisy. So yes, I'm not going to belabor another point I had because the senator from the 36th made it very well that if you don't have legislators who are experienced, know how to write legislation, understand the building, and have the relationships to get things done, all you do is empower big money interests and unelected staff, which is why I say this is actually the wrong solution. But the minute someone wants to get serious about real solutions, I will work with you. We need structural fixes that will better align elected officials' incentives with the broad middle of public opinion so that we are more empowered and able to answer to the broad majority of voters, not just the loudest voices in the room, those with the most money to spend, or those activists in our own primaries. And we all know it's true. We behave rationally, but only because the incentives within our system have gotten so misaligned and simply don't work anymore in today's political era. At the end of the day, we do not need more inexperienced lawmakers or fewer experienced ones. We need fewer captured ones, even ones that are forced to behave a certain way despite all of their better judgment. Even when they know the incentives and the herd mentality and all of it, the money, the primaries, all force you down a path where really it could be anyone sitting in your seat. And as long as you got on the blue jersey or the red jersey, that's what you're going to do. That's not what we're supposed to be doing, and we all know it. It's not actually how the founding fathers envisioned our democracy working. So yeah, let's get serious about fixing that. Because until we do, believe me, American voters are going to keep tossing massive grenades into the political system out of frustration. And yeah, I think we will continue to see massive jury verdicts against corporations. They're screaming and trying to send us a message. You people are not working for us, and they are right. And it is time that we listen. And it is time that we get serious about reforming our system. If we are serious about that reform, we're going to need to go a lot deeper than performative resolutions about term limits during conventions that are never going to happen. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senator from the 46th, do you wish to close? Wave. All right, so we're in the posture, we have amendment number 1 authored by the senator from the 14th. Is there objection to amendment number 1? We have objection. All those in favor will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On adoption of Amendment 1, the yeas are 22, the nays are 30, and this amendment has failed. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the resolution, adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. Main question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. All oppose the resolution, no. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 34, the nays are 18. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Where's my rules chairman? Where's my rules chairman? The next time you put chicken fighting, the city of Mayberry, and whatever else we just did, you and I are going to have problems right here. I never knew it'd take 5 hours to do all that stuff. So, and we got one more. We got the dogs here. Got a dog bill here. Oh my goodness. Senate Resolution 90. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 96 by Senators Dixon of the 45th and others, a resolution commending the benefits and contributions of purebred dogs and recognizing May 1st, 2025 as Purebred Dog Day in the state of Georgia and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Rules recommends that this resolution do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 6th District Chairman. The Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to Senate Resolution 96, a resolution commending the benefits and contributions of purebred dogs and recognizing May 1st, 2025 as Purebred Dog Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas dedicated individuals in Georgia breed dogs to develop unique, predictable, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, recognize Senator from the 45th. And Senator, if you take more than 10 minutes, I promise you I'm going to adjourn right here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I bring Senate Resolution 96 before you today. It commends it commends the benefits, contributions of purebred dogs, and recognizes May 1st, 2025 as Purebred Dog Day here in the state of Georgia. The senator from the 24th has a good example of a good Georgia Red purebred dog, so we'll let the senator from the 24th present that.
Go dogs! Let's do it now.
With that, I yield the well, Mr. President.
Senator from the 7th, are you really wanting to speak? All right. All right.
You guys, what is this bill? I mean, I love dogs. I grew up with dogs. Eisenhower, a beagle, Henry, a corgi, Ruckus, a mutt, a scrappy little Chihuahua terrier mix who had more personality than most people. They weren't just pets, they were family. And one day I hope to share my dog friends with my son. But with all due respect, we have far bigger priorities in front of us than creating a purebred dog day and wolfing in the Senate chamber. Stop wasting our time. Georgia is facing real crises. Hundreds of thousands of Georgians still don't have access to health care, yet we refuse to expand Medicaid. Families are drowning in the cost of living, and we still haven't reinstated the back-to-school tax holiday. Our kids are hungry in classrooms, and we have the power to expand school meal programs, but we haven't. Gun violence is taking young lives, and yet common sense safe storage laws sit untouched. If we have time to honor purebred dogs, then we have time to honor working-class Georgians by actually addressing their struggles. The people who sent us here don't want symbolic gestures. They want solutions. So let's get serious about the work we are elected to do. Let's put the politics of distraction aside and get back to passing laws that make Georgia a better, safer, and more affordable place to live and raise a family. Our job is not to pass feel-good resolutions. It's to fight for the people who count on us. Because I promise you, no Georgian is lying awake at night worried whether or not we have purebred dog day. They're worried about paying their rent, affording their prescriptions, and keeping their kids safe. That's where our focus should be, and I'll be voting no. Thank you.
All right. There must be a full moon or something going on right now. I mean, we got the senator from the 53rd and the 36th voting together on issues. We got 5-hour debates here. This is something else today now. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. Previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the resolution? Chair hears none. Report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. Main question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary unlock the machine. Senator from the 20th, you have a question, Senator? Senator from the 49th, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, isn't it true that every dog has his day?
Senator knows what he speaks. On the adoption of the resolution by substitute, the yeas are 40, the nays are 9. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted by substitute. I recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Ready.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 0900 hours tomorrow, Friday, February 21st.
The majority leader has moved. Secretary, read the announcement.
The Rules Committee will meet upon adjournment in room 450 of the Capitol. Education and Youth Committee will meet at 2 p.m. in room 450 of the Capitol. The Judiciary Committee will meet at 3 p.m. in room 307 of the CLOB. The Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee will meet at 4 p.m. in room 450 of the Capitol. The Insurance and Labor Committee has been canceled. The Special Committee on Investigations will meet at 5 p.m. in room 450 of the Capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the pro tem for announcement.
All right, one last reminder, folks, we're going to have our Senate composite photograph tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Please be here on time. And in celebration for getting this week behind us this week, as of tomorrow, bring your blue jeans next week. We'll have another blue jeans for Thursday or Friday, whatever the last day of next week is. So hope everybody has a great weekend, but we'll see you tomorrow for the composite photograph at 9 o'clock.
Hold on one second. Recognize the Appropriations Chair.
Hey, thank you, members of the Senate. Just want to help you prepare your schedules for next week. The way we're tracking right now, we should probably have a Senate Appropriations Committee meeting at 8 a.m. on Monday. Just want to prepare you, get ready as you go home, and know you're preparing to come back at next week. Thank you so much, Mr. President. I yield the will.
All right. Any other announcements? Y'all come back in a better mood tomorrow. The majority leader has moved. Majority leader has moved. All those in favor of the motion signify by signifying aye. All those opposed? The ayes clearly have it. We're adjourned.